Hello, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Quest. Well, we're here today. We're what is it, 6,000 miles apart. We've got our guest Jeff Scheer and his chef Chris are with us from the restaurant Marlow on the island of Maui. So this is a pretty big spread for us. Where I am on the East Coast, it's 9 o'clock at night. It's 3 o'clock where you are, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeff, let me just for those who have, like myself, have never been to Maui and have never been to Marlow. Let me just give a little quick sort of overview of right off your website, a little bit of an intro. Chef owner Jeff Scheer and his wife Kaylee have always loved to entertain at their home in Kuala. And is it Kula? Kula. Kula. The concept for the restaurant is an extension of that warm hospitality felt while sharing good food and good wine around a table of family and friends. When the restaurant industry shut down in March of 2020, the pair began making sourdough pizza out of their outdoor oven at home, milling a whole wheat berry or whole wheat berries from a farm in Arizona, which makes me think that maybe somehow that's connected to Chris Bianco in some shape or form.
It is actually.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna unpack that one as well. Your hand stretching mozzarella. You're doing whole animal butchery, growing artichokes, summer squash for toppings. It was a true labor of love. What began as a ritual has grown into a restaurant. So welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Chris. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How that ritual has turned into a restaurant. How long has Marlow been open?
Marlow will be open this August. It'll be 4 years.
Oh, so it's yeah, so it's right after the pandemic. Somehow,
But actually, right in the middle of the pandemic. So we coming to the end of the pandemic, and then all of a sudden we had a whole nother outbreak, and everything got crazy again. And yeah, it was a really hard restaurant opening. I've opened a few restaurants now, and this was definitely the hardest for sure.
I'm sure, in one of the scariest times in our lifetimes. I want to explore all of that and everything that we talked about in that little intro and everything else. But before we do, let me just throw out a sort of a question to get the ball rolling. I look at the menu of Marlow is just beautiful to look at, traditional Neapolitan pizzas and other things under wonderful menu items on a sourdough crust or naturally leavened dough, which is right on trend. We've been talking a lot about sourdough pizza as the next big thing, I think, in the pizza world here on Pizza Quest. But and most of the pizzas on the menu look very familiar and traditional. So it's things like Italian Neapolitan tradition is a big thing. But I get the feeling that, with growing your own things and there's room on that menu for some inventiveness. What would you say is the most creative, out of the box, inventive pizza that you've also made that doesn't necessarily, it's not something you'd find in Naples?
Well, we actually we do tend to run specials and get as creative as possible. And actually, our pizza now is a little bit. When we opened up, we tried to do real classic Neapolitan style pizza, and then this was kind of the how this entire thing when we were doing pizzas. And actually, Chris was with me during the pandemic. I had a pizza oven on my deck, and I was like, you know what, let's just do this for fun. We'll make pizzas and we'll do this. There's nothing going on. No one was working. The whole island was locked down, and it was just a pure, fun, exciting thing to do. I had a really good friend who had a pig farm who was raising these beautiful Berkshire pigs, and I was helping him butcher the pigs because he had an abundance of these pigs and he had no place to sell them during the pandemic. So he was like, I don't know what to do. I've got, these pigs are mass producing these beautiful Berkshire pigs. He's like, we gotta like we got to slaughter them and we got to put them into, we got to sell them. And so we started to do that. And then I started to say, okay, well, let's make sausage and let's make ham and let's do all of these things and we'll put them on the pizza. So that was kind of the fun part about how this whole thing worked. And Chris and I worked together. We would do it every Friday and Saturday, or was it Saturday and Sunday? I don't know. It was 2 days a week. And it turned out we were just trying to feed our neighbors for fun. And that it turned out to be this, it was like we would do 150 pizzas a night out of our house, and it was absolutely chaos out of a little small wood burning oven that I could only get 2 pizzas in it at a time. So it was crazy. But it was more Neapolitan style, higher hydration, really high temperatures. When we opened up the restaurant, we started to do a lot of takeout, and that wasn't really part of the restaurant design or the concept that we had thought of. So actually, our pizza now is not Neapolitan. I would say it's more of a kind of a hybrid between
Yeah.
Neapolitan and then almost a New York style broth. We dropped the oven temperature and we dropped
Mm.
our hydration because of the takeout. And then what I found was,
In other words, it's more box friendly.
it's a little bit more box friendly. It's a little bit more crispy, and it's something that I feel like, and I enjoy it. I love a Neapolitan style pizza too. But then I just, after being open now for 4 years, the recipe for that pizza dough has changed. I mean, at least 10 times.
Well, that I think that's important to for people to understand that you're not trying to do a replica of, a pizza in Naples. You're creating something with what you have to work with and what you're learning, your own, I would call it self-discovery of food. So, but just give me like one example of something that is whether it's from the farm to table aspect or something that would be inventive, that would surprise somebody that would you'd see on the menu.
We were doing a really cool pie for a while where I was doing the whole animal butchery, and I was taking the ham and we'd cure the ham and we'd smoke the ham. We'd slice it really, really super thin. And we were doing that with a mustard made with apples that growing apples, believe it or not, in Maui, everyone thinks it's all tropical, but country, it gets actually cold and stone fruits grow really well. So we were making this apple mustard. I feel like that was a really cool,
That sounds cool.
okay, just unique stuff
I
like
think I'm not sure if I read about this on your menu or somewhere else, but were you doing something with persimmons?
oh, yeah, we do a
Is
persimmon
that
pie.
is that a regular menu item for you?
It is every year.
Seasonal.
Yeah, seasonal. We do persimmons are like in season for about a month if you're lucky.
Yeah, they're a tricky fruit.
Yeah, they're really tricky, but they're beautiful. And we'd get them to where they just start to get ripe. We'd slice them thin, and every year we serve it we just change it up a little bit. We were serving it with blue cheese, persimmons, and prosciutto,
Yeah, 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 makes sense. Yeah. Well, so Chris is there, on your shoulder there. What do how do you guys trade off? What do you guys do together, and how do you collaborate in creating the experience at Marlow?
Chris is probably
And
couldn't work.
I'm sorry, before you finish that, working also how your wife fits in because she helped to create this, right? She's part of the creative team as part of the Kaylee. So let's give a picture of how you guys work.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a crazy long story, but my wife Kylie had a clothing line for a long time, and I've been a chef most of my life. And I was working at a restaurant called the Mill House that I opened up, and I was there for 4 years. It was really intense. There's a lot of covers, a lot of people, a lot of staff. We were doing between 800 and 1,000 covers a day. It was absolutely wild. And it was a little bit of everything. We always joked because it was kinda like a hotel without guests staying there because there were so many people that would come in. We did lunch and dinner, and then on Fridays and Saturdays, we did a chef's table tasting menu, and it was a wild run. It's 4 years of just absolute just craziness, but I learned so much through that experience, and it was a stepping stone to opening up our own restaurant. And then after that, when my son was born, to make a really long story short, I tried to open up Marlow and and it wasn't Marlow at the time, but I tried to open up in the same location, trying to do a very similar concept of what I was doing right now. And the permits just didn't come through. And I spent a year on the project with no permits. And then a year into it, nothing happened. And the financial partner I had at the time he decided he was going to walk away from it. It just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And at that point, I took a hotel job and I took an executive chef job at a resort. And it's almost immediately after I had taken that job, the permits came through. Another company had taken the lease on this unit, and then I was the hotel for 6 months and just getting absolute my ass kicked at this point.
Right. Right.
Was running 2 restaurants and I mean, there's so much going on, and then COVID happened. Yeah, the hotel shut down, and the restaurant that had the contract walked away from it. So I was like, this must be fate. I was able to get it for, on a really I was able to get it for a really good price because it was such a scary time. But I also was dealing with a scary time to try to open this place up and hit this build out. So
Yeah, it's a roller coaster ride, and yet in the end, it's almost as if it was meant to be, but you don't know that it was meant to be when you're in the middle of the roller coaster.
So my wife and I were like, you know what? Let's just, she was so sick of me working at the hotel because I was there for 100 hours a week. And she was like, you know what? We have to do this. So that's how she ended up getting involved. She doesn't have a restaurant background, but she has just an incredible eye on how to make just things look beautiful. And she comes from kind of her family is all in restaurants. Her dad owns a restaurant. Her step up mom owns multiple restaurants. So she's been around the restaurant.
Yeah, it's in her blood regardless of
Right.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
really, she's really all of the look and the decor. I mean, that's all my wife has done all of that. If it was up to me, I probably would have even survived.
She's your stylist and your style queen, and she's so that's a great collaboration. And then and what part does Chris play?
And Chris and I have worked together. Oh, I mean, Chris and I had worked together for over 10 years. I mean, there was one part of our working history where we were in a food truck together. Yeah, I had a catering company and we had a food truck as part of one part of the aspect of the catering company. And Chris and I spent many hours in that little truck.
It sounds like the John Leguizamo movie, with what's his name, Vince Vaughn,
Yeah. So it's great. I mean, and then during COVID, he worked with me in the mill house as well too, and then we worked together on during COVID making these pizzas out of the. So when this finally happened, I was like, Chris, you got to help me out and open this place. So he's been there since the beginning, and Chris has probably cooked more pizzas in this restaurant than anybody else. So I know he's there. He's there. He works during the day. He works lunches, and lunches are tough because, it might not be as busy as nighttime, but we run a very minimal staff. So at nighttime that the pizzas become more of an assembly line because there's just that oven's full all night long. And then at lunchtime, you're not only you're stretching the doughs, you're topping the doughs, you're cooking the doughs, you're pulling the dough out, you're cutting the doughs, you're expediting the doughs. You gotta it's a process where you don't get the luxury of breaking a pizza or messing up because if you miss you you
you're screwed.
you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, you're defining the restaurant position called the Beast. Chris is the Beast. He's gonna plow through that stuff. Yeah. So, where did you guys learn the craft of pizza making? You didn't start out in pizza. You started out in fine dining. Well, how did pizza become part of your craftsmanship and your skill set?
One of the first restaurants I ever worked in was a pizza restaurant, and I always I loved it. I just loved it, and I've always thought about it. I always remembered it. Um,
Where was this? This was a mainland or in Indiana?
this is a restaurant where this chef Mateo he owns a restaurant now called Mateo's, but he owned another restaurant. This was 20 years, a little over 20 years ago, and he opened up this restaurant called Mateo's, and it was really cool. And I was working in a restaurant down the street, but then when that opened up, that was a cool restaurant because it was kind of all the people who worked in industry used to go there because they were open late, and they used to go there late at night. And I was, you know what? At that point, I was in culinary school. I was in my early 20s. I was in culinary school at the time, and I started cooking pizzas a couple days a week at that restaurant, and I love that. I love that line cooking position. It was different. It was just a little. It was, it's something about it is relaxing, but also not relaxing at all. So it's a different like it's a different muscle memory when you're going through the line of like cook because it's more of an assembly line and you're cooking this things over and over again and every piece is going to come out a little bit different and everything's but it's more about just keep moving and keep moving and keep moving and keep turning the pieces, keep pulling them out and keep cutting, as opposed to, like a saute line or another line, a position where you're being fired on so many different items at the same time and so many different times. So in that aspect, it was fun. It was fun for me to do that. And I always thought about that. And even at the mill house, I had a deck oven, so we started doing pizzas out of this deck oven at the mill house, and I got really into, and I got kind of a baking background. I did courses at San Francisco Baking Institute, and I right, and I went through a pastry program, and I've always had a really good sourdough. In the mill house, we had a bakery, so I've always really enjoyed baking and making sourdough breads, and it's always been something that's been part of my.
So you kind of brought all that in, and Chris, were you along a similar track? How did you end up, kind of embracing this aspect of cooking?
But like Jeff said, I've worked with him on many different projects. I was privileged to be part of that chef's table thing, which was really a really cool thing that was happening down at the mill house. But yeah, man. I actually ended up taking a construction job that was a pretty good deal at the time. And I was kind of winding down coincidentally, and Jeff called me up, he said, I'm opening up this restaurant, and it ended up being, close to where I live too, which is great. But, he said, I want you in there, when we open up. So, I called him back. I said, yeah, I'm in.
Chris is also extremely naturally good at cooking pizzas. Like I'll never forget the very first day we opened. And let me tell you, this was the biggest shit show of my entire life. We had nobody who had worked in a kitchen before. We couldn't hire anybody. No one wanted to work because everybody was on unemployment and getting paid. No one wanted to work. And Chris and I were in there with some friends and some family. Everybody was in there trying to help us out. And the very first day, we had an issue with this is another one story. Well, we had many, many issues, but one of the issues, and we had been practicing and trying out. We had gone through, we spent so much time working on the recipe and the dough and everything like that. And that, to make a long story short, that first week, we had a huge water shortage, country Maui, huge water shortage. And so they started bringing in our water elsewhere, and we weren't filtering the water, but they started bringing in the water from a different source, and they were dumping chlorine into this water, and it absolutely killed my,
Yeah.
my starter dough. And when you have chlorine in the water, it doesn't kill it initially, but it reduces the shelf life of the starter dough significantly. So we were using a 3-day-old dough. So then pulling this dough out, and it's like starting to tear and shred
Yeah.
it. Like it's almost like I was looking at like 5 or 6 day old starter dough.
Yeah, because it was getting eaten up by the acids and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just getting completely eaten up, and it was just, and all of a sudden, I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my god, we're done. Lying out the door, place is packed. We're the only restaurant open, and I was like, no, Chris was stretching the doughs, and I was cooking. I was working the oven, and I was like, everyone's having trouble stretching the doughs. I was like, Chris, get on the oven, get on the oven. And he just moved to the oven, and then I went on the stretching of the dough, and then I'm looking over, Chris is cooking these absolutely beautiful pizzas coming out of this oven. I'm like, okay, well, you're on the oven from now on.
Hold it off.
Yeah.
And then it just happened. It just took off. So suddenly you've got like now a happening restaurant and Marlow. And now Marlow, where's that name come from? What is the story behind Marlow?
When we got the permit to build, my daughter was born, and we named her Marlow. So my daughter's name is Marlow.
You know how many pizza operators we've interviewed on Pizza Quest who have named their restaurant after their daughter? It's like it almost seems like it's like part of the formula, the secret formula. Dedicate it to your daughter, and you're bound to have success.
See about it. We were really worried about it. We're like, man, if we don't have success, what are we going to do with our daughter?
Failure was not an option.
Shape name.
That's a good point. If the restaurant Marlow had gone down, then your daughter's name would have become, Kimberly or something. Well, it sounds like you guys are having now 4 years into it. You're having a lot of fun. Our Pizza Quest co-founder Jeff Michael and his family have eaten there, and that's why we're having this conversation, because he came back and told me about it and raved about it and said, you got to meet this guy. And so I'm excited about this. I've never, and this is one of the regrets of my life and it's on my bucket list, but I have never been to Hawaii, to any part of Hawaii. The furthest west I've ever gotten was, San Francisco and the American, the coastal West Coast, but never crossed over. And yet since childhood, I've had this feeling that, I should go to Hawaii. It should be the place I go. And I never have made it happen. And so I'm living vicariously now, talking to you guys, hearing about it. You're on the island of Maui, and yet when you look up the website and if folks who are watching or listening to our conversation, you look up Marlow and the different names jump out, and I don't know what these names mean, but aside from Maui, I see the name Makawao. Tell me if I'm pronouncing this right. Pukalani, and then Haiku. Yeah, those are all different parts of Maui, or how does that work?
Yeah, those are all towns, really close proximity to each other. Pukalani and Makawa are really close. I mean, they're basically the same town that are just they're just slightly set apart from each other.
It's like almost like neighborhoods within a.
You can turn this phone around, you can maybe see it, but like,
Oh, nice sky.
yeah, that over here we're in Fukulani, but if I go all the way over there, that would be the direction of Haiku and also Makawa. So yeah,
And find me a way out of,
yeah.
I mean, I always called the Valley Isle. We've got the one big mountain. It's called Haleakala, House of the Sun. And then across from us is the West Maui Mountains, another mountain range. And in between is this valley. But we're here on that mountain of Haleakala, halfway up, or not, partly up the mountain. We call it up country, is where we're at, kind of in the country here. And we're in Pukalani area. It's in our zip code's out of Makawao. And then the north side, it's a really rainy out there, more rainforest, but it's gonna grind.
So people who know Maui would know these names would make sense to them, but but it's like very exotic to the rest of us, and it's kind of what makes Hawaii such a fascinating place for those of us who've never been there, especially. But where you are, this upcountry area, this is not like mainstream, if there's such a thing as mainstream Maui. It's not this is not the sort of the place where all the tourists land. People have to make an effort to get up to where you are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we actually had, even 3.5 years in, we have such a small tourist population that make it up to the restaurant, which, is, it's been kind of cool in some. I mean, I'm from Ohio. I moved to Maui in 2004, and I've been kind of cooking that's what I came here as I was 21 years old, and I came here just for the summer, and I never left. But I've been basically working in restaurants, cooking. I actually went to culinary school in Maui right after I moved here, and I've been working in a lot of restaurants that have completely based their business around tourism, and I always wanted to kind of do something in a more residential area. So this was kind of my dream. I love Kula, I love upcountry, and I've been living upcountry for most of my time on Maui, and I just felt like this was the spot. This was going to be the cool spot to do. And it's also a growing community. There's a lot of newer subdivisions, a lot of close residential neighborhoods. And I thought this would be the coolest place to do it. It would be awesome to be able to do something here that, is not, I mean, of course, yes, tourists are more than welcome to come in, but it's cool to be able to, like in any given time, I could walk out in that dining room at nighttime and I know 50% of the people that.
Right, because you've got a local following, and it's not dependent on just the tourism.
No, it's a big open kitchen, and I won't say big open. It's a small open kitchen, but it's, you can see everybody at every table when they walk in the restaurant. So yeah, it's really cool.
But you're doing something that. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, I can say that also, we have actually people who come back from either from the United States mainland or even Europe that have come to Marlow in the past and have returned. Yeah, and I have a hard time remembering everybody's face and name for all of that, but we've had a lot of, honestly, like a lot of good return visitors as well that loves to as a part of their regular trip now.
I heard a testimonial tonight from Jeff Michael, our who's producing this episode today and who's our Pizza Quest co-founder, that is what his wife said it may be the best pizza she's ever had. So
Well,
yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's good. That's good word of mouth there. But let's before we run out of time, let's talk a little bit about the craft itself and what you're trying to do. You're working with a naturally fermented dough. You're not using yeast at all. It's just 100% pure sourdough, or is it spiked?
No, it's sourdough. It's we've gone back and forth. At one point we spiked with a very small amount of yeast, and then it's funny, we tweaked it and changed it so many times that I think when we're extremely busy. I mean, when we had ever used yeast, we'd use such a small increment of yeast in it, more as more as if we can make it to that third day ferment, just to make sure that the dough is active and we're,
Right.
but from the most part, after, and I've done a lot of yeasted doughs in the past as well too. I think sourdough is actually easier to work with than a yeasted dough. Yeasted doughs are just kind of billowy and a little bit. They just continue. When you work with the sourdough, you have one shot. Once that dough is deflated, it's done. You can't go. And then I feel like our sourdough really, it really works well with what we're doing. And if you hit that 3 day, 2 to 3 day met,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's really sour.
Are you still using wheat from Arizona? But the way you started out during the home baking days?
We actually, the first year we milled all of what we were doing, we were milling Sonora wheats to feed our sourdough. And to feed our starters called Felix.
Felix?
My favorite restaurants in LA. And so I named it after that we've always had a name for our whatever, sorry. So it's Felix. So whenever we would feed Felix, we'd build the grain for Felix. And it was a 50-50 split between, we use central milling now. Central milling, I love central milling.
Wow, we're old friends with. We've had Nikki Justo on the show many times, and yeah, we love what they do out in Petaluma. The headquarters is in Petaluma. Their mills are out in like Utah, but they've done a great job. Are you using their 00 flour or a particular one or two of their flours?
We just use 00. Yeah, and we use their whole wheat, 00, their whole wheat. So yeah, really, really happy with it. And, when we started, we were using European flours, and they're hard to get. It's shipping across the world to get to Hawaii. It just seemed like we could do something a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly playing around with different flours, and I loved the central milling. I saw the central milling at Tartine in San Francisco, and I was like, I got to check out. I love the bully, I love the breads that they were making with the central milling, and I was like, I got to try this flour. And I was bringing the flour out on pallets to my house and storing it. And then finally, I've got a local company here, Rimfire, who I love these guys. They're so good at helping me out with stuff like that. Now they're bringing in the flour for me. So it's just, I don't have to store pallets of flour in my garage.
Oh, that's a sign of progress that you've got that part figured out. But what are the challenges of making pizza dough and dough in general in Hawaii? It's a different climate than, say, even the Bay Area or the East Coast of the United States. I mean, it's very different. In my mind, I would think that you're dealing with a lot of humidity and coastal winds and things like that. So what are the caveats?
Definitely, in our small little kitchen, we have a lot going on. Well, I think that is actually the hardest part about it, because we are constantly, we do laminated doughs. I have a sheeter. We do croissants. We do all sorts of things in the morning. So we're nonstop just fighting temperature in that kitchen. And, so you just got it. Nothing like, there's no, like, we mix with the spiral mixer from Kemper, which I love.
Yeah.
And it's an old Kemper, and it's great. And it's, we've kind of worked around, but nothing is set. That's the thing, is like, nothing is set. That's why it's so, I try to create, like, very few people to make the pizza dough. There's only 2 or 3 of us that make the pizza dough every single day, because, it's just like the training process, just, you can't train somebody to mix it the same every day, because that doesn't make sense. You have to look at that gluten window, and you have to see where, we're trying not to overdevelop it. We're trying not to work it. We have a bulk fermentation. We have a bowl. We have a process that we do. And then once we get that down, I seem to change it all up on everybody.
From the employee standpoint, you're the owner from hell.
Oh, for sure. Good, he could tell you all about that.
Well, Reckon Spangler was talking about on a previous show up in Portland, where he is at Pizza Shoals, that
That place is killer.
killer, yeah, and similar challenge in that there's only so many people that can make the dough and
Yeah.
and take the helm at that place, and they have to be there for a while. He's got one guy that's been there for 16 years. He can trust him, but not everyone who comes there, they may all want to be be put at the, in the captain's seat, but they're not ready, and they don't know the craft, basically.
That's a really tough one. I mean, I'm dealing with that right now with our pastas. Our pastas really, I don't want anybody to make the pastas in the restaurant right now. It's only a very few people who can make the pasta. Now we're doing a whole new extruded. We're doing a bunch of, it's a whole nother process. We're changing the menu right now with pasta. It's like,
But you do. I see that you have a whole pasta side of the menu, and all that pasta is house-made pasta.
yeah.
And you have gelato. Are you still doing house-made gelato?
The gelato is actually made from, so it's a pretty funny. So we were making that. I've always made gelato, but we've had that program. We had a really cool gelato program at the Mill House and at the hotel and even in the catering company. But then when I was starting this, I was like trying to fit this little corner with the gelato. And so there's a company here that makes the best gelato on this entire island, it's Hawaiian Gelato. And I went to culinary school with her, and Michelle and I both, I was down there, like, I was like, I was picking her brain. I was like, I need to make I need to like make gelato. And I was looking at her stuff, and she's got this facility that costs $250,000. And so it's the most high tech, just the most incredible equipment. She's like, oh, just stop. Just let me make the gelato.
Where this is going, she's gonna say, "Did it for me."
What are you doing? And she lives, I mean, I can see her house from where we are right now. She lives right there. She's like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's just spend. Well, so then we started working on recipes and tweaking things together. So, we came up with a couple cool ideas, and she does the gelato for us now, and she's right down the street. And my God, gelato gets delivered every day. So it's like, it's just epic. And we put it in a pizzetti. So a pizzetti is it's the best way to store gelato. It holds it at the proper temperature with a lot of airflow around.
Oh, nice.
Double wall stainless steel cylinders that drop in the base. And you'll see pizzettis all through Europe and in Italy and stuff. And but you don't see them too much in America because most of our gelato's on display. So this is to the back. So our gelato, we just can scoop this. I mean, it's the perfect temperature.
I mean, it sounds like from a customer standpoint, a real dream restaurant, because you got all the things that we love. We got, killer pizza. You got, beautiful gelatos that, as you said, you can't make them any better than what she's doing. And so you found the perfect person around the corner getting you gelatos. I see other things that you do there that intrigue me. Well, and some are menu items, but another one, I want to come back to the menu in a second, but you doing trivia nights there too?
No, trivia nights are next door at the brewery.
Oh, so that's all. It's the brewery, but the brewery's separate from you. You're not in partnership.
Share a wall.
But it's nice to have that right next door. They have that.
It is. So they do trivia, and you could get pizzas from us and meatballs and a few takeout items from us, and you could bring them into the brewery.
There you go. Yeah.
And
Yeah, so
that's been a really good kind of working relationship.
it's just actually, so there's a whole, what's that, Chris?
Yeah, we have like a nice community, but
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It sounds like, you've got, it's not, no one person has to do it all, but you've created a compound, so to speak, of cool.
Tonight is trivia night, and this place is probably going to get packed. And people love the trivia, and then every other night they do live music at the brewery too. So the brewery's been it's been fun. It's such a cool thing to have up country, and
Every night it must be kind of a happening scene there. Back to the menu though, a couple other things. I know that if I were to get on a plane and get out there, which I want to do, as soon as I can make it happen. But I see something that I read about in one of the reviews of the octopus salad. Is that something as a regular item on your menu? Because somebody was raving about the octopus salad. That sounds like it's, don't miss this dish.
yeah, that salad is. When we opened up, I was trying because when we opened this restaurant up, I didn't even have. I was so nervous about the build out that I cut it short. So all we had was a Bessie wood fire pizza. It was the only thing that we had to cook on. And then I had a convection of it in the back. So I was really limiting, like I didn't know I didn't have any, at that point, I didn't have much was like, we just had to like just wing it. And I needed a few more items other than pizzas and salads. So we started to try to, create a couple other these items. And I threw that octopus salad on as a literally wing it. And I was like, we'll just put this on right now. I don't even know if it's going to taste good. We'll change it later. And we did it, and it was really popular. Now, 3.5 years later, I can't pull it off. I can't even tweak it or change it. Even if I wanted to change it, I can't even, people, it's such a big, and octopus is not the most value. It's not the best item to put on a menu. It shrinks. And, when we cook the octopus, it shrinks 82% loss on weight when you cook it. But and then we cook it and we put it back in the oven and we slow roasted it in the oven and it dehydrates and it dries out. So it really absorbs the dressing, which is a paprika aioli
So, so how do you prepare it then to keep it tender? What's your trick for making that octopus? Because I've been to places that have great octopus, appetizers or salads, or some on the grill, some in the oven, but not every place nails it.
No, we just braise it. We braise it till it's soft, and that's something that just never. There's no set time. You got to keep checking it, and there's different sizes, and sometimes you got to pull out some and then keep cooking it till it's completely soft. We get it to the point where it's tender to you could stick a paring knife in it, and it comes out just really really clean and easy. And then at that point, we pull it out, we strain it, and we roast it in the oven.
That's what I was going to ask. So it goes in the oven at the end, gets a little charred, get a little charred.
Pizza oven, it's almost, it'll get charred for the pickup because the pickup that's when we really char it, but almost like rotating it in the pizza oven with that really dry heat kind of takes out all that moisture. And what that does is, they're like sponges and it just allows you and the dressing is really the dressing we make. We make an aioli with paprika and a little bit of fish sauce and, it's unique, but then we season it to order with lemon juice and malted salt, and it just comes out with it has marbled potatoes and Castle Vetrano olives and jalapenos. It's spicy. It's got a nice little kick to it, but it comes out really really nice.
I'm salivating just thinking about that. A couple other things I saw that you're doing some stuff with kampachi. Isn't kampachi like a yellowtail?
Yeah, it's in the amberjack family.
Amberjack, yeah, it's like an amberjack, yeah.
Yeah, and it's farm raised on the Big Island, and I've actually been really supportive of this farm for a long time now. So, and I've used a lot of kampachi, and kampachi is just one of the most just awesome, consistent fish, and it's local, and it's just we break the fish down whole, which is nice because then we use the collars on a special, and belly gets used for certain things, and we put the belly in the cioppino, and then we do, the entree fillets. It's such a cool fish. We do it skin on, super crispy. We serve that with soubise and a little salad with pickled red onions, and
You got a lot going on there menu-wise, and the pizzas on top of that. How much of your, of the sort of the ticket is the pizza versus all the other items on the menu? You got the only pasta, you got all these great, fish and octopus dishes and
sure, it changes a lot. I mean, it's not consistent. There's nights where it's all pizza, and then there's nights where it's all saute, and there's nights where it's just you never know. You never know. And it's in some ways it's a complete nightmare.
is it dine in? Is it dine in and take out? Do you have tables there where people sit in the restaurant?
Yeah, we have 77 seats, and
77. Okay, so it's substantial. And then and what about beverage? Do you have your own beverage service, or do they need to go next door to the nard?
we have our liquor license. We actually have a really good cocktail program. Our cocktails are so good. So when we opened up, we were actually using beers we were doing, we had we were just doing beer and wine. That was cool. Just to give beer.
Yeah.
And we had really good wines, like just awesome, cool, fun, natural wines and a bunch of really cool stuff. And then we put a few cocktails on the menu, and boom, all of a sudden now we're doing like so many cocktails. And I'm like looking at the sales, I'm like, oh, we have 6 feet of our little small line dedicated to holding kegs that we're doing, maybe $150 in beer a night. We should turn this into a bar well and make some cocktails. And we did. And we eventually, now we do very little beer in the restaurant. We do kind of fun. We do Peroni. I think we do some really cool Japanese beers. They're hard to get, so they're not always on the menu, but I love Japanese beer when you're eating pizzas and kind of heavy things because the bubbles are small and I just feel like they pair really well with what we're doing. So it's there's a lot of
Do
stuff.
do you do coffee drinks too?
We do a really good cafe in the morning. So we do all espresso drinks and but we don't do coffee at dinner time. And that's something that I get bashed on a lot. But because we're so limited on space, that nation doesn't, we tried it for a little while. It's just it's not enough to keep that Walmart. So
What I can have a amazingly hard time getting my head around is the fact that in the morning you're baking croissants and you're doing all sorts of cool morning stuff. Then you've got the restaurant. I mean, it's like a three-ring circus what you're doing there. And
it is a circus. It is a circus. And there really is. I'll tell you, the cafe is, I love it. I love doing croissants. I love doing lemonade doughs. I love doing, I love the cafe components of this restaurant, but that is a pure labor of love. And
and about what time do you start serving the pizzas then? People can come in the morning for coffee and pastries and things like that. You're not also doing breakfast items too, are you?
or,
When does anybody sleep?
no, they don't. Well, the only time there's no one here is about between midnight and about 3:30 in the morning. So, and then there was a while where we were going all night, and that works as well. So it's just kind of like there's very, very few hours where this restaurant's not being, because there's somebody in there.
Well, I'd love to talk about more of the items on the menu with you, but I think we're gonna have to get you back another time and I appreciate the amount of time you've given us now because I know you're in between your lunch rush and your dinner rush right now, and you got to get back to the restaurant. So, thanks so much for sharing all this. And again, I've got to talk to my wife now about making some kind of a plan to get over. You'll be my first call when I hit the island. Jeff Scheer of Marlow, Jeff Scheer, who's created in 4 years. This thing is evolving. It feels like it's an evolving being that there's even more to probably still to come because you're taking over an entire side of a mountain and turning it into a community and a compound of cool stuff. It's a happening place. Chris, thank you also for joining us today. And can't wait to meet you guys in person. For those of you who are watching or listening, when you hit the island of Maui called Marlow, look up, get the website and tell them that you heard about it here on Pizza Quest. And thank you for joining us. Thank all of you for joining us, for watching us today or listening to us. And we'll see you on the next episode of Pizza Quest.